International diplomacy is in high gear. Envoys from the U.S. to Israel are in the Middle East today, hoping to avoid a head-on collision with the Arab world. It appears that Palestinian President Abbas is softening his stance on requesting recognition from the UN. We'll tell you all about it today on Politics and Religion.
Look, there are two things I don't discuss: politics and religion.
In my house, we don't talk about politics and we don't talk about religion.
I'll talk to you about anything except politics and religion.
I never talk about politics and religion.
Politics determines how we'll live here on earth. Religion determines how we'll live forever. I'm Irvin Baxter. I think it's time we talk about it. It's one of those times in the fulfillment of Bible prophecy that has us sitting right on the edge of our seats, because there is a huge prophecy right on the brink of possible fulfillment. I want to make sure that you really know what's going on. You know, the reason we talk about these things so much is because at the first coming of Jesus Christ, most people missed his first coming. I mean, these prophetic fulfillments can be so blatant and so in the news, and yet most people are unaware of what is actually happening. So we try to really pound it home, really break it down here on Politics and Religion so that you can understand what God is doing in our world. Now, we're talking specifically about one of the greatest prophetic fulfillments that has or will occur in the last 2,000 years. This particular prophecy is interesting because it's one of the very few prophecies with a date on it. This particular prophecy, when it comes to pass, will mark the beginning of the final 7 years to Armageddon and the second coming. Now think about that there is actually a specific prophecy that we can point to and say, when that happens, mark your calendar, 7 years to the second coming of Jesus Christ and the Battle of Armageddon. Now, that prophecy is what they are discussing this week at the highest level of world affairs, and that prophecy is what the Palestinians intend to bring before the United Nations next week. Now, is there a chance that an agreement could be struck in the next 7 days that would mark the beginning of the final 7 years to the Battle of Armageddon? The answer to that question is yes, there is a chance. Is it going to happen? We don't know that. We think the likelihood is probably not yet. However, we want to make sure we break this down in such a way that everybody out there can get it. And if there are things about this that you do not understand, I would certainly encourage you to call today, because we're not talking about just any prophetic fulfillment. We're talking about one of the greatest prophetic fulfillments in the last 2,000 years or more. Actually, one of the greatest prophetic fulfillments of all time. The prophet Daniel told us about it, but went to his grave not understanding what he himself wrote. But you and I are the people that are watching it come to pass right now. Now, let me see if I can put this in layman's language so that all of us get it. The Bible teaches that there is coming a peace arrangement of some sort that will do two things. It will determine the final borders between the Palestinians and the Israelis, which of course is one of the two biggest issues in the Palestinian-Israeli negotiations. And the other thing it will do is to place the Temple Mount under a sharing arrangement between Muslims and Jews, and the sharing arrangement will be administered by the international community. It will either be under the UN or under some kind of an international watchdog arrangement. Okay, two things. Let's make sure we get them. Number one, it will determine the final borders of Israel between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Number two, it will place the Temple Mount, that 35 acres, that's the most disputed piece of property on this planet. It will place that 35 acres, the Temple Mount, in a sharing arrangement so that the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock remain there, and then a Jewish temple will be built north of the Dome of the Rock. So it will be somewhat of an ecumenical Mecca. Maybe I should say interfaith Mecca. And in order to enforce the peace on the Temple Mount so that things will not get out of control, there will be an international watchdog, a supervisor. It will be under international supervision, most likely the United Nations, but under some kind of international control in order to make sure that it can work. Now, this is what they're discussing today. The Palestinians have said that they will ask the United Nations to recognize a Palestinian state within 1967 borders. Now, the 67 borders would draw the line between Israel and the Palestinians in a place that Israel does not want the line drawn. Also, they are requesting that East Jerusalem would be recognized as the capital of this new Palestinian state. Well, if that were granted by the United Nations, if that happened, then that would place the Temple Mount under sole Muslim control. They would totally control the Temple Mount, and they would totally control the Western Wall where the Jews gather to pray every day. So what's going to happen? Well, that request is not going to be fully granted. However, it has caused a real panic, not only in the Jewish sector. I mean, Jewish diplomats are running all over the world, lobbying heads of state, please do not vote in favor of this creation by the Palestinians. It's going to cause chaos. We will not be able to comply. It's going to cause more trouble than it's going to solve. And so there's been a lot of diplomatic activity. And the United States in particular has said in no uncertain terms that it will use its veto power at the UN Security Council if this issue comes up, and so it will be dead on arrival. However, the Palestinians say, well, we just may not go to the UN Security Council. We may go to the General Assembly and ask them to vote there because there's an Arab proof majority there at the General Assembly. So all this is taking place, but I've got some specific news for you that I want to make sure you realize. And also, if we have time today, I'd like to finish what we began yesterday, because if you'll remember, we began by talking about the things that will happen between now and the Battle of Armageddon. And we listed several of them. I will review those things for you, but we didn't get finished with our list. So I'd like to finish that list today if at all possible. However, this is such important breaking news that I have to bring it back to you. This particular article is entitled "Palestinians Back Off UN Security Council Statehood Bid," and this comes out just this morning. The tempest which Israel had tensely anticipated for September in the wake of a Palestinian bid for unilateral UN recognition of their state looks like fizzling out before it begins as a result of a massive U.S. campaign to avert it, backed by Saudi Arabia, Europe, and Egypt. Now, this is the report coming from Debkafile. The article goes on to say, early Wednesday, September 14th, of course, that was this morning, Israel being 8 hours ahead of us, Palestinian Authority Chairman Mahmoud Abbas decided crucially not to submit his application to the UN Security Council. He also notified Saudi Foreign Minister Saud al-Faisal and European Union Foreign Executive Catherine Ashton in Cairo that he was considering watering down his application to the UN General Assembly, possibly by dropping the state within 1967 borders provision from the text. Because what's happening is all the UN resolutions called for trading land for peace, but that the borders had to be negotiated between Palestinians and Israelis. Well, now then, Mahmoud Abbas is going to the General Assembly, or at least said he would, and ask them to unilaterally determine the borders instead of determining those borders by negotiation. So he apparently is finding too much resistance worldwide to enumerating that these borders must be along 1967 lines, and he is now considering dropping some of that text. Abbas said he would make his final decision known in a public address from Ramallah on Friday, September the 16th, 2 days from right now. And he's going to do that before flying to New York to join world leaders at the UN General Assembly's 66th session, which will begin on Tuesday. So very interesting to see what's happening here. The article goes on to say, but first he meets Middle East Quartet envoy Tony Blair in Amman, Jordan, for a conversation which Debka Files' exclusive sources term critical because Blair will hand him a document termed by senior Washington sources as an outline of a new format designed to oil Palestinian wheels into unlocking the long-stalled Palestinian dialogue with Israel. This outline has been endorsed by Washington, the European Union, and the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. Now get this. This outline has been endorsed by the United States, the European Union, and Secretary General Ban Ki-moon of the UN. So Tony Blair is meeting with Mahmoud Abbas, and he's going to present this outline. This is a last-ditch effort to head off this head-on collision that appears to be imminent at the United Nations next week. Now, this new outline is subject to acceptance by Israel and the Palestinians. Moscow has not yet indicated whether it approves the document or wants changes. Now, by Wednesday morning, the Israeli government had not yet received a copy of this new outline. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has no doubt that he will be called upon for concessions extreme enough to lure the Palestinian leader back to the table. Blair is expected to deliver the document to Netanyahu sometime on Thursday, so that would be tomorrow, of course, after Abbas has seen it. To tie up the ends, senior White House envoys Dennis Ross and David Hale are due back in Jerusalem and Ramallah Wednesday, that being today as well. So you see what's happening. President Obama is sending his personal representatives to Israel. They probably have arrived there by now and may already be having meetings by now in both Jerusalem and Ramallah. Of course, Jerusalem is the headquarters for the nation of Israel, even though the world does not recognize it as such, and Ramallah is serving as the headquarters for Mahmoud Abbas in his West Bank regime. So that's what's going on right now in the Middle East. And what could come out of this? One thing that could happen is it could push a hasty agreement. Now, they could reach agreement pretty quick because they've been negotiating this thing ever since 1993. So we're talking about almost 20 years. So they know what all the nuances are. They know where every nook and cranny is, where every hill and valley is. They know where everything is. They can move to an agreement fast if they could only agree to terms. So far, they haven't been able to. We'll see what happens in the next 6 days. It's going to be very interesting.
Maybe you've listened to Politics and Religion for years, and every time you hear us talk about Endtime's free weekly e-newsletter, you say to yourself, today is the day I go to endtime.com and sign up. But the teacher from school calls, Junior's sick, your husband texts you a picture of the mailbox that Susie ran over while learning to back out of the driveway, and as you try to get out of the door, your boss is waiting for that detailed report that was actually due yesterday. All of a sudden, convenience is not on your side, and now the e-newsletter is the last thing on your mind. We now offer an easy-to-use feature that is perfect for those of you that have little time to spare. Just text the word Endtime to the number 22828. It's that easy. Text ENDTIME to the number 22828. That's ENDTIME to the number 22828.
William Koenig is the author of Eye to Eye, Facing the Consequences of Dividing Israel, in which he contends that America's 12 costliest hurricanes and 2 largest terrorism events began within 24 hours of U.S. presidents applying pressure on Israel to trade her land for promises of peace and security. Are each one of these record-setting events just a coincidence or awe-inspiring signs that God is actively involved in the affairs of Israel? Find out on Tuesday, September 27th on Politics and Religion.
Tired of the same old boring TV? Tired of the not-so-reality TV? We have the answer. Tune in to the exciting show that keeps you up to date with current events. Hope, meaning, answers. That is the message that Irvin Baxter's End of the Age series represents. You can tune in every Sunday on Daystar at 10:30 p.m., Mondays on the Church Channel at 9 p.m., or tune in to TBN on Wednesday mornings at 7 a.m., all Central Standard Time. Get informed today.
If you'd like to be on the program with us today, the number to call is 877-END-TIME. And we're talking today about the high drama taking place between the United States, Israel, and the Palestinian Authority. The European Union is involved. Cathy Ashton, who is the foreign minister of the European Union, is involved. Tony Blair, who's special envoy to the Middle East, is meeting today and tomorrow with Mahmoud Abbas of the Palestinian Authority. He is presenting a new plan that's been secretly pounded out by the United States, by the European Union, by Ban Ki-moon, the head of the United Nations. This new plan has been endorsed by all 3 of those powers. Now, you're talking about heavyweights here. When you put the United States and the European Union on the same side, you've got quite a juggernaut that's going to be very hard to say no to. In the meantime, though, Israel has yet to been presented with the plan unless someone has secretly let them take a peek at it, which I do not know whether that has happened or not. But Mahmoud Abbas is being presented with the plan by Tony Blair, even possibly as we speak. And then tomorrow, Netanyahu is to get his look at the plan. The hope is that both of them will agree to it, and thus it will be announced that peace talks will be resumed, and that the head-on collision at the United Nations would then be averted because there's no use for there to be a unilateral declaration of statehood if, in fact, there's a new framework for peace talks in the Middle East. Now, where is this going? And I think that's the most important question that we have to ask. We are headed toward an agreement. Is there going to be one? Absolutely. The Bible specifically says there will be a confirmation of Israel's right to exist in the Holy Land, and that confirmation will happen 7 years before Armageddon. Part of that confirmation will be placed in the Temple Mount under a sharing arrangement. In Revelation chapter 11, verse 1 and 2, a situation is described where John was told to measure the Jewish temple, but do not measure the outer court, because it will be trodden down the Gentiles for the next 42 months. So there's going to be a temple built and will be standing 42 months before Armageddon. And yet the outer court of that temple will be placed under the Muslim Gentile presence. So it's obviously a sharing arrangement. Measure the temple, do not measure the outer court, for it will be trodden down the Gentiles for 42 months. And yet the Antichrist, ultimately the international leader of the world, is going to stand on the Temple Mount saying, I am God. I am the top authority here. So it paints a picture for us of a shared Temple Mount under international control. There's a lot more to the details, but nonetheless, we want to take your phone calls today, by the way, and we're very excited about what is happening around the world. I want to go now, though, to Georgia. Larry is holding there for us. Hello, Larry.
Irvin Baxter, there's one thing I haven't heard you address, and that is if the Palestinians get statehood, then under international law, that blockade has to be lifted, because a blockade of a port or of a coastline is considered an act of war.
Well, if they are granted statehood with the defined borders, which I seriously doubt is going to happen because the UN resolutions themselves call for those borders to be negotiated. So if statehood is in fact granted with defined borders, that's going to create a whole lot of nightmares for Israel, because if they continue to occupy territory, they now are an occupying power against an action by the United Nations. Now there's another little shade of twist to this, though, and that is that the decisions, the votes of the UN General Assembly are not considered binding, that they only have public relations benefit. It's only votes taken by the UN Security Council that are considered binding. So nobody knows for sure how much if the UN General Assembly did take an action, how much it actually would take on the force of international law, and if that would pave the way for filing suit against Israel before the International Criminal Court and possibly putting the heads of state of Israel on trial before the International Criminal Court. These are all questions. We're in uncharted waters here that I haven't read any good answers to yet.
Yeah, I don't have any good answers either, but I just wanted to bring up that point.
Well, and that's the reason that the United States is putting all of its diplomatic muscle on the line here. Most of you out there have probably read that in a very Jewish district in New York, which almost always votes Democratic, matter of fact, they've not had a Republican representative since 1923. Well, there was an election held there yesterday, and the Republican won. It is being touted as a referendum on the Obama administration, and that the Jews sent a message as to what they think about the way Obama's been handling things. All of a sudden, once President Obama announced his campaign for presidency in 2012, he suddenly has lurched far to the right and is become very pro-Israel at this point, whereas before there were many people thought that he was getting ready to sell Israel out and sell them down the river. So there's a lot at stake here, because most people believe that Obama, as a Democrat, could not be elected without strong Jewish support. He got 78% of the Jewish vote last year, but they just now voted his guy out in the election that just took place yesterday. So a lot of political currents and winds blowing here. Hey, Larry, thank you so much for the phone call. Now, I want to make sure that we understand what's happening here, because there's a couple other things I wanted to finish. I think they're so very important here. Let me find out exactly where I am. During his visit to Cairo, Mahmoud Abbas was sternly warned by Saud al-Fayzo, the foreign minister of Saudi Arabia, by Ashton, and by Egyptian leaders of the grave consequences awaiting the Palestinians if he forced the UN to exercise veto against their statehood at the UN Security Council. So the United States, President Obama, is very much an internationalist. He does not want to use his veto power. He doesn't want to be forced into a corner where he has to do that. And so Mahmoud Abbas was very sternly warned by Saudi Arabia. You say, well, what does Saudi Arabia have to do with it? Well, they funnel huge money into the Palestinian Authority. If Saudi Arabia, the European Union, and the United States of America all withdrew their funding from the Palestinians would go broke almost immediately, and Mahmoud Abbas would probably be toppled from power. So they hold his political fate in their hands, and that's the reason they can exercise such power. And then Egypt's in it too. You know, Egypt flipped the Mubarak government a few months ago, and everybody's wondering, well, where does Egypt stand? Well, Egypt has a peace treaty with Israel, and Egypt is very much a player in that part of the world. So in the midst of all of the political turmoil, all of a sudden Egypt stands with Saudi Arabia, with the United States, and with the European Union in warning Mahmoud Abbas, you better not push this any further. You're going to end up putting President Obama in a position. U.S. President Barack Obama Tuesday made it crystal clear that he objects very strongly to the Palestinian statehood motion as counterproductive and a distraction from solving problems that can only be addressed through negotiations. The article goes on to say, U.S. sources report that the U.S. president has refused to talk to Abbas for the past 8 months, owing to his refusal to join Israel for direct peace talks. So President Obama hasn't spoken a word in 8 months. He will not take his phone calls. He will not talk to him. All communication is being done through diplomats, but no direct communications. If you'll remember, George W. Bush did not talk to Yasser Arafat for the last 4 years, at least, of his administration. He would not talk to him in any way because Arafat lied to him, number one, and he cut him off completely. Well, it looks like the same treatment is now being given to Mahmoud Abbas because Mr. Netanyahu suspended settlement building for 10 months, and Abbas still would not come to the peace talks after Obama went out on a limb and pressured Netanyahu to suspend the talks. Well, then, when that interim period was over, then Abbas suddenly comes running to the peace table, and then Obama had to try to get Netanyahu to renew the moratorium on building, and Netanyahu said, no, Abbas is just playing games. He waited. We suspended building for 10 months. He waited till 2 weeks before the deadline was up, and then he comes running over the table for political purposes only. We're not doing it. We're tired of playing these games. So Obama apparently agrees to that because he has not been willing to even take a phone call from Mahmoud Abbas. I found that very, very interesting. He was advised by the Europeans, the Saudis, and the Egyptians this week that the U.S. presidential boycott would almost certainly extend to fellow Palestinian leaders and U.S. financial aid. So here the threat is the U.S. may cut off financial aid if you do not become more pliable. The Palestinian Authority would thus be placed under American sanctions. However, if he withdrew his statehood bid from the Security Council and accepted the new position paper, Obama would consider restoring communications. That's what's going on behind the scenes right now. So it's very interesting to watch it all as it does develop. Let's continue back to the phones. I think we have time. Let's go to Indiana and Michael. Hello, what's on your mind, Michael?
Hello, Irvin. I had a question and comment. How do you think the Israeli Defense Force will be able to deal with the backlash and the outcome of this vote with the UN voting for a Palestinian state? How will the Israeli Defense Force? And my other comment's really critical. Please allow me to speak it. Is the last time the Palestinians had done something for recognition was a Munich massacre, and that's really important because what they did there is they wanted recognition for the Palestinian Revolution, and the Germans worked with the Palestinians to organize that whole massacre, and the Jewish people had just had a ceremony at Dachau death camp to commemorate the victims of World War II, and then the Munich massacre happened. And just so happened in that year, Kurt Waldheim was a UN general, and the NATO general was a loon, Joseph Loons, and he was a member of the National Socialist Party in the Netherlands. And I'm just saying, with this type of support with the United Nations now for a Palestinian state, what do you think the outcome will be other than to destroy Israel? And that's unbiblical, and I believe there'll be a curse against our country if we support that. Thank you.
Good comments, Michael. And the fact is, we know Israel is not going to be destroyed. We know she will come to the brink of destruction, however, at the final battle called Armageddon over 7 years from right now. Whether it's 8 years, 9 years, 10 years, we can't say for sure. I'll address the rest of Michael's comments as soon as we get back from this break. You're listening to Politics and Religion.
17 million, Shanghai, China. 13 million, Moscow, Russia. 20 million, Mexico City, Mexico. This is the population of just a few cities that currently don't have understanding the end time. But imagine the billions of people in places like Paris, France, Rome, Italy, Cairo, Egypt, and many other cities throughout the world that currently need the end time message translated in their language. Irvin Baxter has a burden to get the End of the Age series, Understanding the End Time, translated into the 8 major languages of the world. The translation project will take a total of just $120,000. If you'd like to participate in reaching the world with this message, call 1-800-363-8463. Your gift of $1, $10, or $50 will make a difference. Call 1-800-ENDTIME or visit endtime.com to help reach the world with the End Time message.
Do you ever hear the news and know that something's just not right? Do you ever read about politics and think, what is going on? Maybe you wonder what all this means for you and me. Well, we finally have some answers. Irvin Baxter has a 12-lesson series called Understanding the End Time that has aired throughout the world on TBN and Daystar. This series contains lessons like United States discovered in the Bible, Islam and Bible prophecy, and the 7 trumpets. The Bible says in Daniel 11:33, "They that understand among the people shall instruct many." Would you like to be one who understands end-time events so you can instruct your friends and loved ones? If your answer is yes, then don't miss out on Understanding the End Time with Irvin Baxter. Call 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-363-8463 and request your copy of Understanding the End Time.
By the way, let me update you on our translation project. Here's where we are. Are you ready for this? $99,882.66. So we are $20,100 and approximately $18 away from our goal. So if you're out there and God's blessed you and you could contribute to this so that these 14 major prophetic lessons can be put in the languages of the world that cannot presently understand them. They're not available to them. Right now, we're only available to the English-speaking people of the world, approximately 1.8 billion. That leaves 5.2 billion beyond the reach of these lessons. But with this translation project, that will jump up to 6.3 billion. 90% of the world's population will now have these lessons available to them. So, is it a worthy cause? I don't know of any cause more worthy than this one, because Jesus said, these are the truths that I will put in the hands of the end time generation so they can know that they are on the brink of my second coming. So if you'd like to contribute to this marvelous cause, we are doing very well. As you can see, we're almost there, but we still aren't quite there. We still need right at $20,118 to make it over the top. So if you'd like to help out, just please do what you can. It doesn't matter. Maybe somebody wants to give $118. That would take us up to the $100,000 mark. $118 would do that. Maybe you'd like to give that. Or if you're to where you can, maybe you'd like to give $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 to make us move quickly. But it doesn't matter. If it's $10 or $10,000, just do what you can, and we'd appreciate it. Call us, 1-800-END-TIME. We're almost there, and we're going to make it. So keep pedaling right now. Don't stop now. We're talking today, though, about this huge, huge prophecy. I don't know of any bigger prophecy since the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus Christ. I know of no bigger prophecy than this one. And Michael was pointing out in the last call that if, in fact, we would veto their application for membership to the UN, would that result in riots in the areas controlled by the Palestinian Authority? Mahmoud Abbas claims it will not. Mahmoud Abbas claims that he is going to counsel his people, do not turn violent. They've reached the point where they think that violence is counterproductive. It destroys the image of the Palestinian Authority in the eyes of the world community. It gives Israel a pretense to crack down and to crack down hard. So he claims that they are not going to be resorting to violence. Now, what is quietly said in Arabic on the street, I cannot tell you. We'll have to see what happens. And as Michael pointed out, many times before, the Palestinians have indeed resorted to violence in order to make their point, not only at the Munich massacre, but many times since then, the suicide bombings that happened in 1994, 1995, the horrific bombings that have occurred over time in order to create pressure and make a statement concerning Israel withdrawing from what they consider Palestinian lands. So will there be violence? Well, we don't know. Uncharted waters here that we're traveling through. Nevertheless, it is important what in fact is happening right now. Let's move back to the phones now, and Randy's calling today from Missouri. Hello, Randy. What's on your mind?
Yes, Irvin. Thank you for taking my call today.
Welcome.
I had a question about the white horse rider, the first seal in Revelation. I really respect your teachings. I'm very familiar with your interpretation of those seals, and I know you teach that, and most of the prophecy teachers I've come across in my life do, in one way or another, teach that white horse rider is a mark of deception, and you're teaching about the Catholic Church and such. I've come across another teacher I also highly respect, and his other interpretations of the second, third, and fourth horses are similar to yours. But on the white horse, he says that the white horse under the first seal represents overcomers and conquerors, and I'm having trouble resolving the issue. You say it's deception. He's saying it represents overcomers for Christ, and this man, he seems to be a very godly, Messianic Jewish person, and can you help me out on that? Is there any way that can be represented as overcomers on that first white horse?
In my opinion, it cannot be, and here's why, Randy. Of course, you're familiar with what I'm teaching, but yes. We have four horses there. And the colors are highly significant because the colors are repeated in the prophecy in Zechariah 6. So these are not happenstance colors. These are colors of significance. There are four horses, and those colors just happen to be the official colors of the four biggest movements in the world. And that is white is the official color of Catholicism, red is the official color of communism, black is the official color of capitalism, and green is the official color of Islamism. And that's the colors of those horses. And every clue of the white horse rider does match Catholicism, because the rider on the white horse had a bow but no arrows. He had weapons, but he did not use live ammunition like the red horse rider had a sword in his hand. The white horse rider did not. And then it says, and a crown was given to him. The popes had no crown until about 900 and something A.D. Pope Gregory was the first one to acquire a crown. And the Pope's helicopter is white, the Pope's airplane is white, the Pope's Pope-mobile is white, the Pope always officially dresses in white. I have quotes from Catholic publications saying that it is the official policy of the Church that the Pope dresses predominantly in white, because that's the official color. So to me, that all that evidence is so weighty that I think that's the reason I reached the conclusions that I did.
Yeah, well, I had trouble with that, with the view of the other man, because with the other three horse riders being such negative things, I was wondering, well, why would the first seal be such a positive, but he was representing this as being a conqueror in order to face these things, these other things that are coming. And I do appreciate your insight into that. When it says a crown was given unto him, and you were talking about the Pope in 900 A.D. getting a crown, did he give himself a crown, or was it assigned by someone else, or do you know?
I don't recall exactly how it happened. I know it was Pope Gregory, and I think it was around 964 A.D. Don't hold me to that date exactly, but it was in that neighborhood. Whether he himself determined it or whether the people around him wanted to honor him and bestowed this upon him, I'd have to go back and research the history. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah. I do appreciate your constant repetition of the truths about the Holy Roman Empire. I heard another prophecy teacher today, and he kept talking about Rome being revived, and these other prophecy teachers just simply do not talk about the Holy Roman Empire. And he was saying, that there's no evidence right now, except in a very general level, that the Roman Empire is starting to be rebuilt. But all this stuff you talk about with the Holy Roman Empire, with the building over there in Europe and the coin that had Charlemagne on it and all these other things, it seems so evident that the Holy Roman Empire is indeed what what is going to be rebuilt is being rebuilt. So.
Yeah, and that's such a critical piece of prophetic understanding, Randy, because if you don't understand that, you can't really understand what's going on right now. And one reason why some teachers have a difficult time with that is because if they confess to that, then they're going to have to say, well, why would this be portrayed as a bad thing since Catholicism in their mind is a legitimate good thing and maybe the leader of Christianity because that's the stance they take. Whereas I believe that Catholicism as it is today, along with most of Protestantism, has gone into apostasy, and there are yet good people in there that the Lord said, come out of her, my people. So I think once you take that stance, then you're indicting somewhat. And even though I don't mean it ill toward anybody, just standing for the truth, I have to do that. And I think that's the reason some of them avoid taking that stance.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you for your time today. I do appreciate it.
Okay. Appreciate it very much, Randy, and good questions, by the way. You know, it's such a delight when people call in and you can tell they've been thinking, you can tell they've been studying. Let's now go back to Ohio, and Robert's listening there on the internet. Hello, Robert.
Hello. Thank you for taking my call.
Welcome.
I have a couple questions. I want your opinion. If you could give it about the Turkish embassy, the Israel embassy in Turkey, that they want to expel the Israeli embassy members. And down in Egypt, the attack that was made on the Israeli embassy in Egypt, and the Turkish threats against the Israeli Navy, they threatened here. I read in the news the other day that they threatened to disarm any Israeli ships out in the Mediterranean area that would appear. I don't know what provoked it, but anyway, they're interested. My understanding is they're interested in that gas deposits that are out there, and Israel utilizing that and making money from it and gaining financial strength from that. And I'd like to hear you give a overall picture of that. I know that's a lot to dump on you, but
no, actually, it's a good question, though, Robert. I appreciate it because it needs to be talked about. You know, in the Bible prophesies that Turkey will be an enemy of Israel at the Battle of Armageddon. And in Ezekiel chapter number 38, Turkey is named as Togarmah. And if you'll get an ancient map of that area of Asia Minor, you will see that's where Togarmah was. Furthermore, Turkey has control of the Ataturk Dam, which has the ability of stopping the flow of the Euphrates. And the Bible says the Euphrates River will be stopped at the time of the Battle of Armageddon. So because of those factors, I have been for a long time saying that Turkey was going to end up being an enemy of Israel. And yet, Turkey and Israel have been that's been the best Arab friend outside of Jordan that Israel has had. And so I was teaching something that the only way I knew it was from the Bible. Well, now all of a sudden that's taken a huge turn. What happened was there was a ship that had several Turkish citizens on it that tried to run the blockade. That was that first ship, and Israel stopped the ship, went on board, and there was resistance on board. A firefight broke out, and there were 9 Turkish citizens died. Well, since that time, the Turkish government has demanded that Israel apologize for doing that. Well, Israel said, we're not apologizing for protecting our borders. International law gives us a right to protect our borders. Well, finally, there was this inquiry that was being completed by the United Nations. It was just published last week, and it said that Israel had the right to protect her borders. Well, Turkey got all upset about that and took a stance and said, until Israel apologizes for what she did, we're closing your embassy, we're sending your diplomats home, and we're beginning to make all kinds of threats. So that's part of what's happening where Turkey is concerned right now. Turkey has turned and become an enemy of the nation of Israel, but of course we knew it was going to happen because the Bible says it will at Armageddon.
Technology, technology, technology. I know what you're thinking. It isn't for me. Some I've heard say it's only for geeks. Well, not anymore. Digital downloading has become quite simple, so that for all of us not so up to date with technology can do it with a breeze. Whether you're snowboarding in Alaska or climbing Mount Everest, or just simply sitting with some friends who think they know all the answers to Bible prophecy. You can now download tons of product from all your technical gadgets. Don't even ask me to name them. Go to endtime.com day or night, and in a matter of minutes, guess who looks like a genius? Your friends will be speechless. Go to www.endtime.com. That's ENDTIME.com. Click on shop and you're in business. Don't delay, download today, and become a part of the End Time Geek Club.
Death, destruction, poverty, war, disease. These are only some of the things that are ahead in the end time. Want to know more? Join us in reaching out and informing the world that over 2 billion people will die. We as a nation can't hide from this. We have to tell everyone we know about the prophesied war that will start from the river Euphrates. Call now to get your copy of World War III and spread the message that the end time is now. Call 1-800-END-TIME.
Can't get enough of politics and religion? Well, neither can we. We have some great news for all of you Bible prophecy gurus. Think no, not pre-trib, different subject, pre-show. Irvin Baxter will be teaching the End of the Age series. Here's what you do. Just log on to endtime.com/radio Monday through Friday at 2:30 p.m. Central Time and click on the live webcast button. Cha-ching! More Bible prophecy. How confusing having a favorite show. We feel your pain. Call 1-800-END-TIME for more information.
Stand by for very important announcements. I will be in South Bend, Indiana tomorrow evening at the United Pentecostal Church of South Bend, 4609 South Ironwood Drive, right there in South Bend, Indiana. Pastor Kenneth Mendenhall, marvelous friend of mine. And that's tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. That's the 15th of September. So right now, make plans to be with us Thursday evening, 7 p.m. at the Ironwood Church there of South Bend, 4609 South Ironwood Drive. I'm certainly looking forward to seeing you there. And then on Friday evening, we will be in Indianapolis, Indiana at the Lawrence Apostolic Church at 6202 Sunnyside Road, Indianapolis. And that time will be 7:30 p.m. with Pastor Terry Long. And I'll look forward to seeing all of you from the Indianapolis area there. Certainly hope that you can make it. We'll be speaking on critical subjects that everyone needs to hear right now. So make sure you're there. We'll probably have some additional new information for you by then. I hope you can make it to one of those meetings. South Bend Thursday night, Indianapolis on Friday night. Certainly we'll look forward to seeing you there. Also, next week we will be in Newport News, Virginia. That's at the Peninsula Pentecostal Church, 404 Sharon Drive. That will be on, let me see, when am I going to be there? I'm going to be on the 25th at 10 a.m., 11:15 a.m., and 6:30 p.m. So it's going to be a very interesting time there at the Newport News Church in Newport News, Virginia. If you can be with us, if you're in that area, we would love to see you there. Let's get back to our subject today and also to your phone calls. The big news is that it appears there's a deal in the works behind the scenes. Will it succeed or not? Cannot tell you for certain whether it will or not. Nonetheless, there is news in the making. Let's get back to the phone calls now. We're going now to California. Jerry's calling on the internet. Hello, Jerry. What's on your mind?
Hello.
You're on the air, Jerry.
All right. Hey, Mr. Baxter. I have a question for you. It's a little off topic, so I'll just ask you the question, then I'll get off the line.
All right.
In the Bible, it says to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. And I know when you talk about the rapture, you say the dead in Christ will rise first, before the Christians are raptured up. So I just wondered if maybe you could explain that situation.
Yeah, I sure can, Jerry. We know that when a person dies, their body is laying in a casket in a mortuary, yet their spirit is gone. If you've ever been with someone when they passed away, something awesome happens. Something leaves and something stays. Now, that person is both spirit and body. the Bible says that the spirit returns to God that gave it, and the body goes down to the dust. So when the Bible teaches to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord, to those who are saved, their spirit immediately goes into the Lord's presence. We actually have a picture of this in Revelation chapter number 6, verse 9 through 11. And it says there, John said, I saw the souls of them under the altar. And they cried out, how long, O Lord, till thou dost avenge our blood upon those that dwell upon the earth? And so they were there in spirit form. Spirits are not dumb. Spirits have knowledge. They have awareness. Now, exactly what that's like, if you've never been there, and none of us probably ever have, we may not be able to fully describe it, but we do know that we are in spirit form until the time comes for us to be placed in our second bodies. That happens at Resurrection Day. So at Resurrection Day, the spirit, the Bible says in 1 Corinthians 15 that everybody has two bodies. We have a physical body designed for our temporary existence. Then we have an eternal body designed for our eternal existence. We're all in our first one right now. And what you do in your first one determines where you spend eternity in your second one. So anyway, at the time of the resurrection, the spirits that are lying at rest in God's presence will then be reunited with their second body, not the first one, but with the second body, and then they will become a part of those people who are saved that rule and reign with Jesus Christ for 1,000 years. Hope that helps out, and I may not know every single detail. I'm simply relating to you what the Scripture says. Let's return to the phones now, and calling from Illinois. Hello, Chris. What's on your mind?
Irvin Baxter?
Yes.
Hey, I got a quick question for you. Actually, it's a two-part question. The situation in the Middle East with the Palestinians and Israelis, and the situation between the Sunni and Shiite Muslims, could both those events be a trigger for the World War III that's supposed to start from the Euphrates River, or do you believe that'll be two separate events that could both at separate times?
You know, Chris, we don't know for sure what's going to ignite that war. We know that war is coming. Whether it's the conflict between Shia and Sunni, I tend to think it will not be the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians, because both Israel and the Palestinians will survive the war that kills 1/3 of mankind. And plus, it says it comes out of the Euphrates River area. Of course, Israel right now is quite a distance away from the Euphrates, probably, I don't know, at least 500 miles away. So I tend to think that it probably will not be the Palestinian-Israeli conflict that ignites it. But the Bible doesn't say for sure what ignites it. It just says it comes out of the Euphrates River area. And, of course, right now there's a lot of conflict between Turkey, which is where the Euphrates starts, Syria, which is where the Euphrates goes next when it leaves Turkey, and then Iraq. Of course, we have 50,000 troops there, and that contains most of the Euphrates River. So that's where the war comes from. Exactly what the flashpoint is going to be, I'm not sure at this point. It could be the Arab Spring. I just simply don't know, but something is going to ignite, and maybe it could be this present conflict that would ignite it. Again, I don't claim to know for sure what the flashpoint is going to be.
Well, the reason I ask that is because it seems like the Palestinian-Israeli situation, of course, that's always been between Isaac and Ishmael's descendants. And, you know, they talk about the confirmation of the covenant, that the Antichrist is going to confirm a covenant with Israel, and it's going to be a war that I guess is World War III, is going to have a reason to have peace. The Antichrist says, enough of this war, let's have some peace. The 7-year, well, they say 7-year confirmation, then the Antichrist is going to break that right in the middle of it. That's why I'm trying to figure out which of those wars could be that one that the Antichrist will step in and say, you know, enough's enough. Let's sign a peace agreement.
Yeah, well, it appears from the way the prophecies are arranged in Scripture, it appears that World War III will happen, this sixth trumpet war as described in Revelation 9, verse 13 through 20. And then that will produce such a cry for peace that it will then result in the agreement that triggers the final 7 years. That agreement's called the confirmation of the covenant in the Bible. it appears that that's the way it's all going to come down. And the Bible does not say that explicitly, but just knowing the prophecies and when they're supposed to happen and how they're supposed to happen, it certainly seems logical to me. I guess beyond that, Chris, we'll have to wait and see.
Okay, I appreciate it, Brother Baxter.
Okay, thank you very much. We have time for one more caller real quick. Let's go now to Georgia. Hello, Judy. Judy, are you still with me?
Yes, I'm sorry, something clicked off. Yes, I have two comments. One is I happened to go to a meeting about a month ago and was asked to, I'm full gospel, and I was in a meeting, and the people asked for us to recite the Apostles' Creed, and this was turned out a Methodist church. And why that's significant is in the Apostles' Creed it says something about, and we have our allegiance. And we have our allegiance to the Holy Catholic Church, and it made me wonder. Now, how many other Protestant religions are already hooked up to the Catholic Church that don't call themselves Catholic from the outside? And then the second comment that has is not about that, but is about how we are already setting up here in the United States. I'm thinking if you look at the amount of people that's on social assistance, whether it's Social Security, welfare, our troops, all of that who are receiving a government check, if for some reason that were to get taken away, what kind of mayhem there would be, how much of our economy is based on what the government already gives out to its people, plus the troops overseas. He cannot bring them back home because if he does, that would drive the unemployment even further up than it already is.
You know, I was shocked when Timothy Geithner, our Secretary of the Treasury, announced that the government writes 80 million checks a month.
Yes.
I mean, I was stunned.
Yes.
That we have that level. Now, we know there are a lot of people that have paid into Social Security throughout the years. Now then, they're collecting Social Security. And so we have actually addicted a lot of people to government checks.
And Brother Baxter, can you imagine what would, I work in street ministry, and can you imagine what would happen if you said to, after a month's time, if you cut all those people off and said, all you need to do is just put your name right here, and here it is.
Yeah. Hey, Judy, got to let you go. I'm way over time. Thanks for the good call. And one more time, let me encourage you, give to the Translation Project. We're almost home. This gospel will be preached in all the world. The number to call, 1-800-ENDTIME.
Politics and Religion is a production of Endtime Ministries. We are a daily 1-hour broadcast dedicated to bringing you the prophetic fulfillments happening every single day. If you would like to listen to archive programs, subscribe to Endtime Magazine, find a prophecy conference, order Endtime products, or subscribe to our free weekly e-newsletter called 1-800-ENDTIME. Or go to endtime.com and take advantage of everything that the website has to offer. To be a part of Endtime Ministries, partner with us and help this message go to the entire world. Endtime Ministries is a partner-supported ministry. We'd like to take a moment to thank all of our loyal partners and listeners for helping make Politics and Religion and Endtime Ministries possible.
If you would like to have a copy of today's program, you can obtain it by simply calling us at 1-800-END-TIME Or you can go to our website, www.endtime.com. You can either order the physical product from there and it'll be shipped to you, or there's also a place there for you to digitally download it, and you can have it within minutes and be enjoying it in the privacy of your own home. I'm so excited to announce to you our 14 lessons making up our Understand the End Time Prophecy series. Our 14 lessons now include the United States discovered in the Bible, New World Order, is world government, Islam in Bible prophecy, World War III, Israel's God-given destiny, Israel, God's prophetic time clock, Holy Roman Empire reborn, Antichrist and the false prophet, 666 Mark of the Beast, the secret pact between Gorbachev and the Vatican, when all religions become one, the 7 trumpets, the second coming, and the kingdom of God established on earth. You'll want to have all 14 of these marvelous prophecy lessons. If you go through these 14 DVDs, each of them 1 hour, you are going to know more about Bible prophecy than the average student graduating from theological seminary. We need to know where we are right now. Jesus Christ said, I tell you these things before they come to pass, so that when they do come to pass, you might believe. So the number to call is, one more time, 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-363-8463, or go to endtime.com.
You can now have all 14 Understanding the End Time DVDs filmed in End Time's TV studio with green screen technology using beautiful full-screen graphics. All 14 hours are just $1.99. Go to endtime.com or call 1-800-END-TIME right now.